I love musicals. I'm a big fan. I think they're incredible. I love being transported to a world where music, one of the greatest and most expressive ways of telling emotion, is used to express emotion and feeling, is used to describe even mundane tasks and make them interesting. I think musicals are incredible. And I'm also a huge fan of Tom Hooper's 2012 Les Mis, and that's coming from someone who loves the theater production. I've seen the show on Broadway. I've sang the songs myself in choir. I really, really love Les Mis. I think it's an incredible story. I've read Victor Hugo's book. I really love Les Mis, and I really like that 2012 version. And one of my favorite things about that 2012 version is Hugh Jackman as Jean Valjean. Hugh Jackman is one of the best entertainers, period, alive, period. He is a hell of an actor, and he's a great singer, and he just puts on a wonderful performance in pretty much everything I've ever seen him in. This year has seen excellent Hugh Jackman performances like that in Logan. So obviously I was very excited when I heard that Hugh Jackman was going to be in another musical. Pair with that Zac Efron, someone who I think has such an incredible charisma but might need some help picking some better projects, and Michelle Williams, a world-class actor. I was very excited to see The Greatest Showman.
I am not a stranger to the dark.
You're still just the tailor's boy.
Hide away.
Better luck with your next job.
Those people will never accept us.
This isn't the life I promised you. Not even close.
But I have everything I want.
The Greatest Showman is directed by Michael Gracey and it stars Hugh Jackman, Michelle Williams, Zac Efron, and Zendaya. Going into this movie, I was pretty excited, as I said before, but I was also a little worried. From what I heard in the trailers, the song sounded a bit overproduced, and I wasn't sure if the movie was going to really hit me in the story department. But I was really excited to see this sort of biopic about P.T. Barnum, the man who started the whole circus craze. I was really excited, even though I've never really been a fan of circuses. I'm kind of afraid of clowns. Now, I wasn't really sure how similar this show would be to the 1980 Broadway musical Barnum starring Glenn Close. Now, I have never seen that show, if I'm being honest, and I've never heard the music, or I don't know much about it, just other than that it exists. So I was interested in seeing this movie. So let me start off with telling you what I really like about this movie. It's Hugh Jackman. It's also Michelle Williams, and it's pretty much the whole cast. I think everyone in this movie acts pretty decently, except for the child that plays Hugh Jackman. I don't like to pick on children actors. I just don't think he was very good. Also, I could really tell that they were dubbing over what he was singing, what he was saying in the movie. I just didn't think the dubbing of the music worked really well with his character. Everyone else didn't bother me that much, even though it is pretty obvious. This was shot in more of a traditional sense than Tom Hooper's 2012 Les Mis, which they actually filmed them singing everything live rather than recording it in a studio and then dubbing over all the performances. Hooper shot that all live, which I really respect and I really like, and I think it actually adds a lot to the performances in that film. In this one, you can tell that certain characters are using that recorded session dubbed over their performance, and the most striking example is for the child that plays Hugh Jackman. I think the girl that played Michelle Williams when she was younger did perfectly fine. It's just Hugh Jackman, the actor that played Hugh Jackman's character, I'm not sure of his name. But going along with the performances, Hugh Jackman puts in an excellent performance as always. He is great in this film. Again, his character might not have the best depth. His character might not be that fleshed out. His character might not have that interesting of a story, but he's very good in it. I enjoy his singing. He really sells all of his scenes throughout the film. Michelle Williams is also really good. It actually was a really long time into the movie until I realized it was Michelle Williams. I'm not sure why it took me so long to realize who she was, but she's good in the movie as well. Zac Efron is also really good in this movie. In the beginning of the film, when he first shows up, I didn't think he was trying all that hard, but toward the end of the movie, his relationship with Zendaya's character does really work, and it makes the film all the better for it. What really upsets me about Zac Efron, I think, mostly are the projects that he's picking. I don't think he's picking the films that are up to his caliber, but of course, maybe he is. I just think I find him to be charismatic. He might not actually be that good of an actor, for all I know. I keep saying this about him, so maybe he really isn't that good of an actor. But I just like him. I don't know. There's something about him. It's sort of how I like The Rock. I think The Rock is very charismatic, and I pretty much like everything he's in because he's in it. Now, I think The Rock might actually be a better actor than Zac Efron. The jury's out on whether or not Zac Efron's a good actor. That's just basically what I'm gonna say. Zendaya, on the other hand, has a little bit more to play with in her character. Her character has an interesting storyline, a storyline that I actually wish would have been more fleshed out, and she's very good in this movie. All of the aforementioned actors are excellent in their singing roles. They really do sell the singing in this movie, even if I have some issues with the music. They are particularly good at singing. The next thing I really liked about the movie was the circus aspect. I was interested in every single person who was actually in the circus, everyone who was working in the circus, everyone who had an act, everyone who was considered a freak, everyone who was hired by P.T. Barnum to be in his circus. I loved all of them. I thought all of their storylines converging, no matter how small they were, was interesting. I actually wish I would have seen more of the circus itself. I guess the next thing I'll talk about here is the music. I'm gonna preface this by saying that I have listened to the music quite often. The songs get stuck in your head, and I've listened to them on repeat. I really like the music, I think. It's hard to say. The music is really overproduced. It all sort of sounds like pop, just generic pop music, stuff that you might hear on a Disney Channel movie, things that you might hear on the #1 radio station. And as someone who doesn't really love overproduced pop music, it kind of bothers me that I like this music so much. It's not show tunes. This is not Broadway musical style music, which is good because a lot of people complain about show tunes, and But the thing about this music is it doesn't exactly feel real. It all feels pretty fake. And while it is fun and I've listened to it and I'm gonna admit that it's probably a guilty pleasure, it's not really good. It's not. And they really were touting this film's music. They were like, from the lyricist of La La Land, because that adds so much to this film because everyone loves La La Land because of the lyrics. I mean, don't get me wrong. La La Land has some really incredible music, but I'm not going to La La Land specifically for the lyricist, and I don't think anyone should be going to The Greatest Showman specifically for the lyricist, especially when some of those lyrics are way too on the nose. This movie's really interesting because it balances storylines in a very strange way. They're sort of touting it as this biopic about P.T. Barnum, but they're also making it a film about his circus and all the people in it, and it's just very oddly made. And also the story about P.T. Barnum isn't all that interesting. About halfway through this movie, I was very bored. And then they decided to give P.T. Barnum's character a little bit of depth. They tried to make him a little bit of a flawed character, and while it works for a little bit, it just isn't enough. I want a movie that has these sort of stakes. I want a movie where the characters are flawed and they have issues to them, and P.T. Barnum just wasn't all that interesting of a character to watch. I don't think he was written incredibly well, and the movie just sort of felt too saccharine and too sweet. There's just something about this movie that's very off-putting. Now, of course, let me clarify everything. I'm gonna watch this movie a bunch. My wife really liked this movie, and I also really liked it as well, despite the fact that I don't think it's all that good. This is a guilty pleasure film by every definition. It's a movie that has a lot of issues, but is really heartwarming and incredibly fun to watch. At the end of the day, I can't help if they made a movie that's really fake to prove a point about P.T. Barnum's circus to fit these sort of themes that were in the film, or if they just made a movie that felt very fake because they weren't incredible filmmakers. There are really interesting dance set pieces throughout the film. There's one set piece in a bar that felt very old school musical. But at the end of the day, it didn't really feel like those actors were doing those dance moves. Everything felt way too produced. Everything felt way too clean and seamless for me to really connect with this movie and say that it's this incredible work of art. It's a fun movie, and if you like fun movies, and if you're interested in musicals, and if you love Hugh Jackman, you gotta check it out. I don't know, it might sound like I have really weird feelings about The Greatest Showman, and I think it's because I do have really weird feelings about The Greatest Showman. I don't think it's incredible, but I also don't think it's absolute garbage either. It is solidly an okay movie, and that's why I'm gonna give The Greatest Showman a 6.5 out of 10. You don't need to rush out and see this one. You could definitely catch this one on Redbox, or you could stream it any way you possibly can. Do not see this in theaters. It's not worth your money or your time, but I definitely think you should check it out if you like musicals. Thank you for watching. Make sure to come back here to Razzle for all of our excellent content, and make sure to follow me on Twitter at I am Mourar. Follow Razzle on Twitter at Razzle Review, and I'll catch you here next time.